Hi, so this is a review of a few questions from the SAT Practice Test 5. Specifically, I'm going to be going over numbers 2, 7, 8, 11, 18, and 20. So just have your test out so that you can see the work that you did. In question number 2, remember we're at the beginning, so we have to understand that this should be a relatively easy question for us. And I look at it and I can see a table of values, and it says some values of the linear function are shown in the table. So remember that f of x is just another name for y. So if we're trying, and these results, the answers they gave us are linear equations or functions. So we have to write a linear function. So in order to write a linear function, I want you to recall that the minimum you need is a point and a slope. Okay? So these are points. 1, 5 is a point, 313 is a point, and 521 is a point, the x and the y. So I have to calculate the slope. A couple ways you can do it. You can just find the difference between the x's, which is 2 and 2, and the difference between the y's, which is 8 and 8. That's a quick way of doing it in a table. So then remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So 8 over 2. So my slope has to be 4. So looking at this right now, that tells me my answer has to be C. I don't have to do really any more work. Now, if you're not comfortable doing it from a table and you want to use the slope formula, remember y2 minus y1, which again is a change in y over a change in x. So 13 minus 5 all over 3 minus 1. It's the same method. So 8 over 2, which is 4. And again, the slope had to be 4. So there's that y equals mx plus b. So my answer would be C. All right, looking at number 7. The downtown business, or the DBA, in a certain city plans to increase its membership by a total of N businesses per year. So that means it's going up by a certain number each year. There will be businesses in the beginning of this year. Which function best models the total number of businesses, y? So I look quickly, or at the DBA plans to have is X years from now. I look quickly at the answers and I see that I'm comparing linear and exponential functions. These are A and B are in the form y equals mx plus b. C and D are in exponential form y equals ab to the x. So then I have to determine what are the differences that I look for in these models. Well, an exponential model, things increase by a certain percentage. Remember, we multiply by something each year, where linear, we're adding or subtracting by a constant. And so number 1, it said it was going up by a total of N businesses per year, which is a constant. N was the constant, so I knew it was a linear function, so I could get rid of C and D. Then I know I want it in the form y equals mx plus b. N is going up per year, so that's the constant, rise or fall, so that's my slope. And it said the beginning is b, which is the y-intercept. So it would be nx plus b. Why not minus b? Because that would be a negative number, and we can't have negative businesses that we start with. So my answer would have to be A. Number 8. Now, we did switch to number 8, so now we're starting to get to the medium level questions. And I carefully look at this question and start to think about a couple of things. Do I have to do all the work? And can I simplify it to make it easier for myself? So number 1, I can see parentheses with a negative. So I did actually simplify and rewrite the equation. And rewrite the equation just by distributing the negative. Okay. So then I thought about this a little bit. Now, this is the square of a binomial. So if you did want to take the time, it means 1.5x minus 2.4 times 1.5x minus 2.4. The result of the square of a binomial, okay, should be a perfect square trinomial. So I looked at it and I said, well, I'm going to square 1.5 because it's 1.5 times 1.5, which I'm allowed to use my calculator here. So when I multiply 1.5, I get 2.25 x squared. And so in my head, I thought about this for a second. So now I have 2.25 x squared. I'm not going to get any more x squareds. So I decided to combine these before I moved on. It helped a lot because 2.25 minus 5.2, 2.25 minus 5.2 on the calculator gives me negative 2.95 x squared. So I knew that I could eliminate B and A. All right, so now I have negative 2.95 x squared. All right, so then if I keep going with the perfect square trinomial, I have to do the outer and the inner. So I'm going to get 2.4 times 1.5, 2 times, because this one's also negative 2.4 times 1.5, which is 7.2, and it's negative. Well, that part didn't matter to me because they both are the same. See this? So now what matters is the constant terms. So I multiply 2.4 times 2.4. It's going to give me a positive because they're both negative. And so I get 2.4 times 2, which is 4.8. So 4.8 plus 6.4 is 12.16. So my answer would be C. I actually didn't do all the work. I eliminated and then I noticed these were both the same. So I just looked at the constant term. I just multiplied 2.4 times 2.4 and then added it to 6.4. And actually at that point, I knew that I was adding 6.4, that this wasn't a good constant for me to have because it was less than 1. So hopefully that one was a little bit helpful. But again, it's another look at that perfect square trinomial. All right, tricky. They love to trick us. Number 11 tells me I'm definitely in a medium level question, but these are things you know. So in the xy plane, the graph of which of the following equations is perpendicular to the graph of the equation above? Well, you should in your mind be able to identify what graph this is. The highest exponent of either of the variables is 1, so this is a linear function. The problem is it's in standard form, not y equals mx plus b, not slope-intercept form. So you may remember standard form, I hope you do, ax plus by equals c. A quick way to find the slope in standard form is negative a over b. I think putting this in y equals mx plus b makes it much more challenging. But then there's also some things I need to know. If it's a line, I know that perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. So that means that this one's going to have b over a as its slope. If this is negative a over b, then the reciprocal slope would have to be b over a. All right, so I looked at this and I said, all right, negative a over b gives me negative times negative 2 all over 3. So my slope of this line is 2/3. So the slope of the other one would have to be negative 3 over 2. And if it's a, and I make it negative, that would have to be a positive a. So 3x plus 2y, which would give me A as an answer. Definitely a tricky question. If you understand the idea of negative reciprocal slopes, then noticing that these values were the opposite and negative might have been another way for you to look at this question. All right, getting closer. All right, so number 18. What I didn't love about number 18 is that you needed this chart that was on the previous page. Notice it says questions 16 to 18 refer to the following information, and they gave us a chart on growth factor. It was on the previous page, so if you didn't look back at that, you might not even have known what to do with the question. So first of all, I look at the chart. It's giving me the species of tree and the growth factor. And it said one method of calculating the approximate age in years of a tree is by multiplying the diameter of the tree by a constant called the growth factor. So I actually wrote that as an equation. Age equals diameter times growth factor. All right, so then the question I was looking at was number 18. If a white birch tree and a pin oak tree each now have a diameter of a foot, which of the following will be closest to the difference in inches for their diameters 10 years from now? All right, well, I thought about that and I'm like, okay, well, here's the pin oak and here's the white birch. I really need to know their age now in order to do this. So I've calculated each of their ages. So the white birch, I took its diameter as a foot. So I now want to do everything in inches. So I'm going to do 12 times its growth factor of 5. So its current age is 60 years old. And the pin oak, I'm going to take 12 and I'm going to multiply its growth factor of 3, which gives me an age of 36 years old. Okay, so I know its current year, it wants the diameter. So that means I've got to work again with this equation. It's almost like working with it twice. So 10 years from now, the white birch is going to be 70 years old. So I'm going to divide 70 to get the diameter. I'm going to divide it by that growth factor of 5. So 70 divided by 5 on the calculator gives me 14. So I know that the diameter of the white birch is 14. All right, now I'm going to do the other one. 10 years from now, that pin oak is going to be 46 years old. Its growth factor was 3 using that equation. So I'm going to do 46 divided by 3. So 46 divided by 3 gives me 15 1/3. And it takes it one step further because it wants the difference. And the difference between 15 1/3 and 14 is 1 1/3, which is 1.3. So my answer would be C. Okay, one more in this video. This was tricky. The figure on the left shows a wheel with a mark on the rim. The wheel is rolling on the ground at a constant rate along a level, straight path from a starting point to an ending point. The graph of y equals d at t on the right could represent which of the following as a function of time when the wheel began to roll. So I have to really identify what this represents here. And if this is where the starting point is, this is the distance that it is from the ground. So I said that this right here was the distance from the ground. Okay. All right, so that told me that my y-axis was the distance in feet from the ground. So as this is moving, I'm getting closer to the ground, then I am on the ground, then I'm getting farther away from the ground. So as I unroll this, this is my distance from the ground, which in this case then would be D. All right, guys, there's a review of some problems from practice test 5.